like to inform all the participants that every session that you are attending is being recorded. Sir, you may kindly start, sir.
Yeah. So, once again, thank you very much for having me here. This is a great pleasure to associate with a great institute like Oxford institutions. Thanks the management, faculty, and every other person who is involved with this particular presentation. So starting your own company or being an entrepreneur, as I said earlier, does not mean that you have to invest on your own. You may be indirectly involved, and I'm talking on behalf of all of them. And next slide, please. Oh, I'll start with a disclaimer, but there's no single path. This is the right way to do business, or this is a wrong way, which should not be done. So I would like to rather be pragmatic and say that there are unconventional people who have done things differently and succeeded. And there are textbook entrepreneurs who actually, follow a guideline which is so-called, internationally accepted by everybody. So there isn't a single path. There isn't a single product which is good, which is bad. Good products can fail and bad products can do well. So, however, I'm just presenting in just like some basic concepts, and these basic concepts can also be wrong. So next slide, please. Yeah, to start with, but few things have to be sure. If you're not sure about these things, you are very, very unlikely to, really succeed. So to start with, who's an entrepreneur? The entrepreneur is the one who organizes available resources for a profitable business. Now, it's very important for you to understand that available resources in a marketplace, because you can't do a thing without understanding the resources. Now, when I say resources is manpower is a resource, raw material is a resource, packing material is a resource, manufacturing units are a resource, advisors are a resource, money is a resource. So all these are part of resources. So somebody who puts them together and brings a product to market or a service to market is an entrepreneur. And most important word here is profitability, and profitability is not bad. Without profitability, we do not, actually, we cannot run a business. Charities will never be okay for an entrepreneur. So profitable business wherein you sell your service or a product which is wanted in the market. One of the biggest questions many people have is, do you really have enough inventions, whether in the biotechnology or life sciences? Isn't everything been found? Do we really have something new? Aren't diagnostic methods already invented? Aren't medicines, by and large, for most of the diseases there, etc.? Of course, as far as the cure for many diseases is concerned, there's a huge gap there. But then when people think about how is that, what can I do differently from others do? How can I beat Pfizer's or Ranbaxy's of the world? In bioinnovation. So for that, I would like to give you a small example. This is in 1969, a man first time landed on the moon. Like all of you know that all the people of my age would have been around by land then, not the students. Anyway, in 1969, man landed on the moon. It was a great achievement. Basically, a consorted group of multiple countries landed a man on the moon, like 1969. Now, 1970, SADO applies for a patent. You know for what? A patent for fixing wheels on the suitcase. All of you, when you went to hostel, I'm sure you carried your suitcase, and which was so heavy and painful for your hands. And I'm sure you still remember the red lines on your palm as you reach your hostel or your relative's house. Now, which is simple, isn't fixing a wheel on the suitcase is such a simple task, but it never occurred to many people till 1970. And though by 1969, we could land people on moon. So similar, there are a lot of gaps which we don't find. So you need to have an inquisitive mind. If you have an inquisitive mind, you can definitely find gaps in the current situation. Now, once you understand the gaps, then you will be able to really find a solution for that. So not to be discouraged, what some big companies cannot think can be thought about by smaller companies, and that's where you have to start with. Like give a simple example. Most of my orthopedic doctors say that most of the people who come to them at the later age with a snapped disc, slip disc with a nerve getting snapped there, and many of them is because they lift either a gas cylinder or a packaged water. 25-liter water can, you just lift it and try to turn it around and put it on on your kitchen table. So this is something which is very common. Now isn't there a solution? There are solutions. There are solutions which are very expensive, but then I think we need a lot of solutions for simple things like this. It's not a rocket science to actually find a solution to make gas cylinder reach your kitchen without snapping your disc. So small examples for yourself. This is also part of biology, because one of my friends is actually trying to solve this problem, and hence I took it up. Now, why do people do business, or why do people want to be entrepreneurs? Economic incentive is obvious. Without economic incentive, there's no reason, because for us to live, to have a good life, to buy a car, to have a good house, to educate our children, we need money. So economic incentive is one of the biggest driver, but not all the time. Sometimes some costs, you like Gautam Buddha suddenly decided that, enough is enough for me. I don't want to be king anymore. And he changed his course. So many people find a cause and suddenly get into it. I have seen a friend of mine whose son is having some neurological disorder. So he gave up his lucrative job and started working on, trying to treat that particular disease. So that's a solve a cause. You may be moved by usage of multitude of pesticides, and you suddenly decide that I don't want to people to be poisoned through vegetables and fruits. So let me find some alternative for that. So drive for a cause. That's one of the biggest reason why people start getting to entrepreneurship. Self-realization. So many people maybe hurt or during some conversations, or want to prove to the world that I'm not somebody mundane. I'm somebody who has the capacity to achieve something, and to self-realization of its own ego. Many people get into business, which is not bad, because a certain amount of ego is very important. And if you call it may be just self-respect, or enhancing their self-respect, or enhancing their image. If not ego, it's a smaller part of the ego. It's a social culture for some people to be entrepreneurs, people of Gujarat, Rajasthan have, and some communities even in Karnataka have. It's a culture for in their families to do business. So there could be a social pressure to start a business. Then there are some socio-political beliefs that entrepreneurship is the best way. You can see it in a lot of movies. Why suddenly people start doing business. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay. Can I have my, okay. Now, first thing first, when you see somebody who's very successful, you do not need to visualize him as a superhero embedded with multiple qualities, multiple abilities, very intelligent, faultless, etc. Every person you see is a very ordinary person. When there is a story behind him, when he becomes successful, then successful people start creating stories and telling stories, etc. So they are not extraordinary people. They are very, very common people like you and me or anybody else. So any individual can be an entrepreneur and successful entrepreneur. And so you don't need to think that there is a special gene which is embedded in people who get into entrepreneurship in biology or anywhere else. So you need to have a conviction that I can be entrepreneurs. I don't say that everybody can be an entrepreneur in all sorts. There are various fields. You have to carefully choose your field, and you have to fit in there. So how do you fit in? So these are some of the basic concepts which you should be very clear. If you want to be successful, then you really need to have an idea which is viable, which is affordable for people, and which is needed in the market. You cannot have an idea which is not really, which is, imagine trying to develop something which is so expensive or it is required for only a few people. For example, orphan diseases. If you have to work on orphan diseases, then you have to be supported by the government, or you need to have a drive to do it without looking for much of profits. So the concept should be viable. The idea should be viable. Viability both from doability perspective and viability both from the perspective of ability to market, so people are willing to buy it. Secondly, it's very important for us to know the market knowledge. If I ask you what is the market size of the face cream, you may not be knowing. And if I ask you, is it a wise idea to launch an acne product in India versus a face cream or a face wash? You'll be surprised to know that the market size of acne products in India is just about 600 crores, whereas the market size of face care altogether is 8,600 crores. So that's the kind of difference. So you must know the market size. Of course, just because some market is big doesn't mean that you are going to succeed, because bigger the market, more could be the competitors. So you must also know the market divided by the competitors and where you're likely to reach. But the numbers are very important. The knowledge about what sells where, the cultural differences in buying, etc., are very, very important. You might be, if you are walking around in Bangalore and just look at women around, and you might find that most of the people actually do not, above the age of 35, 40, do not wear any makeup. They just walk around. But that may not be the case if you go to Imphal, or if you go to Delhi or Punjab. I'm not telling this is good and that is good. I'm just telling you that where is the market for what need. So it's important for us to know the market size, the market preferences, what sells where, and what is actually quantity which sells. You'll be surprised to know that the market penetration of shampoo in India, or public penetration of shampoo in India, was around 17%. Till the sachet came. And once the sachet came, and maybe many of you of my age would have been using bar soap even for, not soap, soap or even hair during, our olden days. We never used to use shampoo. But the shampoo penetration reached 98% by the before, because sachets were, introduced. So such gems are always there. So you need to be constantly looking at the market and understand the market. You need to have a technical and professional skill. You're very unlikely to succeed in something where you have absolutely no technical knowledge about. You can't make a vaccine if you're not a biology student. You can't make a injectable if you do not have any background from pharmacy. So technical and professional skill is very important. Most important part is capital. When you start a business, thinking that this is going to be successful, and usually our success rates are very low. The last time when I saw, it was told that 1 out of 11 businesses succeed. That means 10 of them have already failed. So that's a kind of success rate. And most of the time, the reason for failure is lack of capital. We start thinking that I need just about 50 lakh rupees to make this idea operational. And as you go along, you realize that even 2 crore is not enough. So deep pockets or enough pockets, enough money in your pocket is very important. And backup is also important. And I'm sure somebody will be talking to you about source of funding and how you can get funding. But money is very, very important. Business know-how, yes. Business know-how has 2 parts. One is depends on what you are actually into, whether you are into products or services. Services is much easier if you are technically or professionally skilled. But if you are into manufacturing, if you're into product, you need to know about the raw material. You need to know about packing material. You need to know about manufacturing, quality control, then all this. So plus what is the distribution chain, what is the shelf life, what are the regulatory affairs, what is statutory requirements, etc. So business know-how is very important. We also need to know the constraints and regulations, and there are a lot of constraints and regulations in biology research. For example, the only reason why we couldn't do phase 2 study, we were ready with the animal study for COVID-19 by July 20th. But we could not get access to, even we had finished phase 1 as well by then, but we could not get access to phase 2 study because of the constraints and the regulations. Government of India, for some good reason, had kept a lot of regulations. And to get through the regulations, we had to collaborate with multiple people. And when you had to collaborate with multiple people and you get your license to do a phase 2 trial, the COVID is already over. This can happen. So you need to know the constraints and regulations. In biology, you cannot do everything everywhere. You cannot, for example, there are GLP laboratories where you have to get your products tested. Then you have GMP, good manufacturing practice regulations for your manufacturing. And there are separate regulations for drug. There are separate regulations for food, injectables, etc. So you better know about licensing part and regulations before you start. And you really need to know whether you have time for doing this. And many people are part-time entrepreneurs. They think that they can dedicate 2 hours or 1 hour or 2 hours a day and start a business and be successful. Of course, there are some businesses where you can be successful doing this, but you really need to know whether that much time is really enough. And secondly, distractions. Distractions could be family, a wedding can be a distraction, having a child can be a distraction, getting transferred from one place to other. So there could be so many distractions. Please be aware about times and distractions because that will determine whether you can smoothly or successfully continue the business. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So before you start any business, this is a must list. I've seen quite a few people trying to solve a problem and actually there is no problem. This happens quite often with software guys. They try to solve the problem and actually there isn't a problem. And many of them do not succeed. So you need to clearly say that what is the problem and which problem am I going to really solve. So after you understand what the problem is, then you have to find what is the solution. Am I offering a solution which is something which is superior to what's present today? Basically, there are 4 values which you can add to a product. Either your product should have a better solution than the existing, whatever is the solution. Secondly, your product or a solution should have lesser toxicity, lesser side effects, or if you're making a drug, or it should be less toxic. That is something less adverse effects to the environment. So these are something which is people always look for. Third thing which people look for is user friendliness. If it is much easier to use than what is earlier, that will be preferred. Good example is why mobile is more popular than the landline. Landline you cannot carry around, so mobile you can carry around. And now mobile has replaced so many things. Mobile has replaced scanners. Mobile has replaced Xerox machine. Mobile has replaced cameras. Umpteen number of even watches, calculator. Name it. The kind of apps they have, it has replaced many things. So these are the user friendliness. Earlier you had to carry a scanner, means you have to go to an office, plug it in, etc. Now all that you can do is with a small device what you have. That's called user friendliness. Lastly, economical. Anything which is cheaper and as good or better than what is existing in the market will have a value. So your solution should be having one of these 4 characteristics. Now, core brand values, it's very important how people perceive about your product. I'll be coming to that in another slide, so I'll just skip it here. And even about the brand deliverables, archetypes, and name, words, colors, and communication, etc. I will talk to you about it. This is a little bit of art in doing business, and without a kind of visible beauty there, it's very difficult for us to sell a product. I'll be dealing with this in detail a little bit later. Next slide, please. So something which we have to really understand and appreciate, like it's great to call that we are Atmanirbhar and we are great. Our people used to, by 1947, I mean, in 1700, India had 30% of the world economy. Then British came in and they stole everything and now we are bad. Okay, that's great. But, there are some things which we have to really learn from Westerners. I have learned. I mean, we have a partner in Germany, and I can see the stark difference between our behavior and their behavior. What we have to really learn, and we have adopted in our business, is one is about the quality control. It's just not okay for most of the the Western entrepreneurs in the Western countries to not to do quality control. And you can see innumerable products in India without having quality control. You don't even think about it. Actually, one of the big costs of manufacturing is quality control. If some countries like China can give you a product at much cheaper price, one is a huge quantity that they can develop, and they have created markets. The second is lesser focus on quality control. I'll give you a simple example. If I have to make a syrup and leave it to market, each batch should undergo tests for pesticides as well as heavy metal tests. Pesticide heavy metal tests together cost around 25,000 rupees, and 25,000 rupees is not a small amount, because sometimes the batch sizes are just about 25,000 to 50,000 rupees, 50,000 units. So if my batch size is, let's say, 25,000 units, then I'm spending 1 rupee only on quality control. This is a direct cost. And there are indirect costs, like there's a quality control manager who is paid salary. Then there are some quality control people who will be checking on the documents which have come. And there's a receptionist who receives the envelope, etc. So quality control is something which is expensive, but then this is something which you never, ever should compromise with, because if you do not have quality, you're unlikely to succeed on the long run. Systems, protocol, and policy procedures. It's spontaneous for a lot of Indians to do business, and there are no systems in place. There are no protocols written for anything. For example, purchase or spending money, for everything, there should be a protocol. And it's very important. Like, you need to have a policy procedure statement. You would have heard about people talking about ISO 9000, 2000, etc. These where they give you certification on the policy procedures. Many times this stays only on paper, but it doesn't work in reality. But it has to work in reality. This is some Western discipline. If you ask somebody, if you ask a Western company that you want X, it will go through a process, and after it goes through a process, the reply will come to you. And I'm telling you, this reply will be vetted. It will not be, they will not come back to you after some time and say that, I'm sorry, I gave you a wrong reply. I didn't ask my manager. No, it doesn't happen. So written down policy procedure statements for every event which is going to take place in your business is very important. I know you need to amend it. You can't sometimes think right in advance and think of all of them, but then you need to review it, and but you need to have policy procedure statements. Attention to basics is very important, and attention to detail is also very important. Attention to detail is about, let's take the example of iPhone, for example. How did iPhone become more popular and became actually it removed the buttons from the phone. So it was about design. So the basic idea about this particular company was, how can I make a phone which is totally different in design? By design, how can I make it more user-friendly, more beautiful to look at? And if you look at the attention to details on everything, what comes there is really remarkable. So attention to detail, small things like what color to choose, how should be the box, where should be the, how should be the edges. I'm not telling that there is no scope for improvement. I think most of the hand mobiles right now do not have a good grip. All of them have, to make it beautiful, they have very soft, nice edges, and you tend to drop them quite often. And I'm always for, I think they should think on these lines and make a grip a little better than earlier. I mean, what it is today. But then these are the kind of details you should look at. You cannot be casual about, everything, whether it is a medicine, how you package the medicine, how you deliver it, etc. is very, very important. It's important for you to write before you act. Don't get into anything. First step till the last step has to be written down. I know it is there in your mind. The script is there in your mind, but that doesn't work. The problem is, if the script is in your mind, it doesn't get translated into people who are others who are involved in your business. So it is not just as you, it's everybody. So everybody should have the script in their hand. So write every step before you start doing it, and let it be there in black and white, available for everybody about their role in that particular task. Delegation is very important. You can't do everything yourself. Of course, you are great, and you may think that I'm very good at designing. I'm good at language, and I'm good at X, Y, Z. But then, in business, you need to garner the skills of multiple people. And when you garner the skills of multiple people, you must understand to delegate it. When you delegate it, sometimes some things will go wrong. They will not be able to do it the way it is. But then that's part of life. You may be able to, you may be able to, they will improve themselves, and over the period of delegation is the only way that you can succeed in business. And lastly, most important is many people look for total perfection before they launch the product. It's not true. What product clicks in the market is definitely not something which can be predicted by anybody. So make a best possible product, then release it to market, get the feedback, and then you can make it better and better. And you may lose time, lose some money also in this, but then that's how the business can be done. Next slide, please. Yeah, now this is coming to the symbols. Now, this is a photograph which I downloaded from the internet. And if I ask her what's her name is, do you think her name is Monica or her name is Jalajakshi? Now, I'm sure there are smiles around, and there could be answers, And I'll be right. 90% of you have said that her name should be Monica. This is a kind of, this is called creating an image. Movies in India have influenced a lot, and movies in India have created an image for every word. A receptionist is likely to have these names. Mother is likely to have these names. The Don or the villain is likely to have these names, etc., etc. So this is embedded in our mind, and this is true about everything, like how we expect a modern scientist to appear, how we expect an Ayurvedic doctor to come ahead. The symbols are in the mind, and you must understand that you need to follow the symbols, and you have to, when you create a character for your product, whatever product or services you create, let's say you create a product, the product will have an image. The image will be of various types. Sometimes, next slide, please. I'll show you some of the why I'm telling you about this. Next slide, please. Okay. See, Atrimed is our company, and the one on the left-hand side is what you see is here. With the V-Care was our earlier logo, and with those fonts. And we wanted to be trendy, and we wanted to be modern. And these fonts are created by various people, and you may not be aware that we have to actually give money and buy these fonts if you have to really use them, and it's illegal for us to use it just like that. So we had to change, and we decided that, earlier, the first one, what we had earlier on the left-hand side was kind of a headmaster look. Every image has got their own, characters. Like in the center, you can see in the blue, like there's a headmaster kind of a character. Then there's a joker like a character. If I ask you what is a joker like a character, you have seen, a product, you maybe. May not come to your mind, but have you seen McDonald's? If you go to McDonald's, you find a joker there. It's a clown. So that's how they have created, because it's basically for fun. People of the age who love to see cartoons, people of the age, teenagers who want to be associated with the jokes, and they don't mind being with the joker. It is not like a school where you go and see a headmaster like a character. Like if you look at Oxford University or Institute, if I look at your building, and if I look at your the MD's chamber, it looks like a headmaster's chamber, because that's how it has to be. It's a position of authority, a position of knowledge, and that's the kind of image education institution should have. Whereas a fun place like where you go hang out and have some Coke and burger. I'm not telling that's good, but I'm just telling how they've created the character. Like similarly, magician is something slightly different. Like I took this specifically because you must understand there's a small difference. Magician is not a clown. He is somebody who's very intelligent. Magician is somebody who can pull an act, which is most of the time supported by science. So magical is totally different from joker. Like I can make an ointment which is magical, which can give you a magical remedy, but I can't make a ointment and give clown-like features to that. When I say clown-like colors, let's say this right hand side here, you see Sorion. This is something very serious product. It looks more like a medicine. So it's a medicinal product. I cannot have red dots around here making it look like Joker. I mean, nobody will take me seriously. You cannot do jokes when you're selling a medicine. So the character is that. The reason I say, then you can have saint, like, somebody like Mother Teresa. It can be like if you want an old age home, or if you want an orphanage, or if you are starting any of such businesses, you cannot have flashy colors, red and yellow and all that. You need to be saintly, and that is already embedded in our mind. Mother Teresa's white sari with the blue lines is saintly. So these are the images we have created over a period of time. So you must be very much aware what is the kind of image that I have, and while naming them, while choosing the color schemes and trendiness, it's very, very important. Similarly, if you have starting a cosmetic, let's say you are making a cosmetic, a lipstick, a lip balm, or a lipstick, which is less allergic, doesn't have animal material, it's bio-friendly, non-toxic, and still you cannot make it look like a headmaster or if you look like a joker. It has to be something romantic. Unless the product, the pictures with that, the presentation, the colors is romantic, it's very, very unlikely to sell. Because at the end of the day, though you're talking about it being very nature friendly, or human friendly and health friendly, it is used on lips, which is basically for beauty. So it has to be romantic. And some of the products could be rebellion. You must be wondering, does Rebel sell? And actually, rebellion sells a lot with teenagers. Rebellion is how the rock music is about. Rebellion is how a lot of video games are. If you see, the demons are those, and most of the video games is where you kill people. You shoot. Like PUBG and all that. So if you look at the total pictures, colors, names, characters, everything is rebellion. So you need to create something like that. And here on the left hand side, you can also see plant science. If you look at the logos and the colors, you can see that it's something come out of technology, and it's basically of plant origin. That's why you have a plant, and you have a capsule which is inside which there is a plant material which is backed by science. So it is very important for you to know that to be successful, it's not just the best product. You need to give proper name, proper character, use proper colors. Only then that you can be successful. Next slide, please. Now, visibility is very important. These days, it's much easier to be visible. Earlier days, imagine making my product visible in somewhere in Shimla would have been great task, taking a train from here to Delhi, and from there another train, going by bus, then making the product available. But these days, with the internet, visibility is much easier. Having said that, the number of products present in the world, on the internet, make it very, very difficult for us to make my product visible against somebody else's product. So visibility is the key. If your product is visible, it's likely to be seen. If it is seen, it's likely to be observed and given interest, and ultimately somebody buying it. So point of sale visibility is also very important, and general presence in the stores and elsewhere. When you make it visible, it's very important that it should clearly say what it is. I can show you here. This is Sorion is our brand. This particular product is basically for psoriasis. So if the product is for psoriasis, look at the name. So if a psoriasis patient sees this as a Sorion topical, with the people who have that disease will definitely think that, oh, this is more likely to be a psoriasis patient product. And if you look at the symbol, it looks like, oh, it's of plant origin, and the name looks little trendy and modern. So probably there's a lot of technology which has gone in, and they have registered the brand name. That means these guys are serious about this particular business. So visibility is very, very important. I'll give you a small trivia. On the left hand side is Bank of China Tower in Hong Kong. This is one of the largest towers. Visibility, all the banks, you just think of it, every bank has got the biggest buildings in town. Earlier, Mysore Bank had the biggest building. Then we had Vaishya Bank and HSBC. If you look at all the banks on the MG Road, they have one of the biggest buildings. There are two feelings which are positive for humans. One is, two and a half. One is, being happy. Second is surprise. Surprise is something which is very positive. And second half, I say, is awe. When you just look at something which is really big, you tend to bow and say that, oh my God, it's so big. So the trust level is always better when there is something with infrastructure is big. That's why banks, infrastructure companies, and of such, even the big software companies tend to build fancy buildings. And it's very important for us to have a fancy office. It's very important for you to have a your infrastructure being big. So bigger the infrastructure, more trust will be there for your people. These are images which have been created. We can't change it. Next slide, please. And recallability, just for your example, it doesn't matter. You keep this slide. One of the products we have is named Every Bit. So now, if I say Every Bit, how difficult it is to recall for you. And the name, for example, how important is naming. Every Bit is a vitamin supplement. And if I say that this is a vitamin supplement, do you think that it is a single vitamin, or do you think that it's a mixture of every vitamin which is required? It's a mixture of every vitamin, right? So Every Bit is something which is, is easy. So you have to name. I have seen some very complicated names, so complicated that I can't recall them, and I end up buying something which is much easier on our mind. After you are visible, most important part is credibility. For credibility, why do we do randomized controlled trials? Why do we do research works with reputed labs? Why do we collaborate with big organizations like IIT or ICMR or others? Is basically for credibility. So credibility can be brought in by genuine work, having good certifications, associating with the good institutes, and credibility also comes from clarity. And if you speak confusingly, it's more likely that there will not be credibility. Credibility is more on clarity of thoughts, the clarity in fact. Some of the best teachers are those who can simplify things very easily, and thankfully we had a lot of good teachers who were able to simplify things and clarify. So credibility also comes when somebody is able to simplify and tell you something. Similarly, if your product or a service is not confusing, it's much easier rather than having a big disclaimer which is of 7 pages which nobody will read. Another important part, whenever you look at people and successful people out there, I see a story, and it's sometimes very important that you have forgotten your story. The story is very important. The story should be emotional, and if you see the most successful movies are where a very poor man loves a very rich man's daughter, and then he has to undergo the struggle. Then he succeeds, and when he succeeds, he gets a it's a story. Every human being loves to listen to a story. And if you look at TV serials about successful entrepreneurs, there are a lot of stories behind. And some of them are probably exaggerated stories. Some of them are slightly twisted stories. And some of them are non-existent stories. But story is very important. Unless you create a little bit of a story around you, which is a little emotional, there's a surprise element to that. And you have to repeat it again and again. That's very important for your credibility. Infrastructure is a visible asset. I already talked about it. Next slide, please. Now, most important part, is your product really useful? Okay, during COVID time, somebody came to me with an idea of, just a 2 to 1.5 kg stretcher, which is of, carbon and, very lightweight, which can be used in Siachen to military to, COVID patients everywhere. So I asked him, how much will it really cost in the market? He said $2,000. Now, you know how much $2,000? It's around ₹1,00,000. He said, actually, if I have to make a profit on this, I'll have to sell it for something around 1.5 to 2 lakh rupees. So imagine then I did a little bit of market survey and found out that for something like 3,000 rupees stretcher, which is of around 3 kgs, is available in the market. So if you have a stretcher which doesn't have a much better utility, and for something like 3,000 rupees, who will buy something for 1.5 lakh rupees? So India is extremely price sensitive society. So you need to be really useful for larger population. Of course, this may be useful for very rich people, but then the utility value is very low. So that's not very important. These are the 4 parameters which I already talked to you about: efficacy, safety, user friendliness, and economical. Unless you have this, it's very, very unlikely that you become successful. Secondly, you can see that a lot of companies come with the huge claims, especially in biology. You would have seen the hair oils which claim that even if you apply a hair oil on the hand, the hand, you may get a hair on the hand. Who's going to believe it? And if that really doesn't happen, that product will not last long. There are fly-by-night companies who just want to, come. They will come with the product. The product will be there for 2-3 years, and then they come with another product, etc. So, but deliverables is very, very important. If you promise that this particular product is going to treat, eczema, or it's going to cure, diabetic wounds or non-healing ulcers, it needs to do that. So delivery is very, very important. So once the credibility goes up on your delivery, and if you deliver the promise, only then that you can get a repeat sale. Repeat sale is a real sale. Always I say that for us, the customer who comes back to me is a real customer, not the customer. The first time customer can always come because of enthusiasm or a false promise that I have given. And the other very important part is, if you deliver your promise, it's infectious. When I say infectious, if you deliver your product, promise, the user is likely to recommend it to somebody else, and recommendations are huge. And imagine MD physician sitting at an HOD of a medical college telling that, oh, Dr. Damle makes a product for wounds, non-healing ulcers or diabetic wounds, and it really works. How many people are going to listen? Because first, there is a credibility in his words, and this guy is not going to talk unless he's really convinced. Secondly, my product could deliver to him, so there is a multiple times enhancement of the deliverable. So that's very, very important. You have to deliver what you claim, otherwise you can't sustain very long. It's very wrong for many marketing people who come and tell you that it's all about marketing, it is not about a product. It's not true. It's about marketing, there's no doubt, but then product should deliver what you claim. Second is market size and segment. You really need to know which segment I am paying to. Now, when I say segment, India is a large country. There are cultural ethos, which is totally different. It's very unlikely that I'll be able to sell idli sambar in a state where they eat only noodles in the morning. So, secondly, we have different tastes. We have we use different languages. So it's very unlikely that I make an ad in Malayalam and try to sell it in Manipur. So there is a difficulty. The difficulty is also about, when you say target market segment, it's also about, are you making a product for children, or are you making a product for adolescent, or are you making a product for middle age or elderly? See, now paying capacity. If you're making a product for a child, probably you have to impress the mother or the father. So, but if you are making a product for adolescent, probably you will have to really impress the adolescent, because you know how nasty they are. They are not going to listen to the parents. They have fixed mind. They have their own peers. So that's a market size. And if you are these days, people who are really employed are wealthy, and people between the age of 22 to 35 are really wealthy, irrespective of which gender you are. They are all employed and they earn money and they have a right to make their own decision. So you will have to, if you're making product in that segment, probably you can make a slightly fancy product, because that's the age when people want to show their wealth, or people want to show, are inclined to buy a brand and stick to a brand. So that's about the market segment. The other market segment is about economically weaker sections versus economically wealthier sections. There are different types of products. I'll tell you a brief. And there's also about the knowledge of the buyer versus knowledge of the seller. If I'm a doctor, I'm sitting in a place, and you're a patient, you're coming to me and you're sitting next to me, and I make a diagnosis. I decide that this is wrong with you and this is the medicine you have to take. Now, the total decision is made by somebody like me, who is neither a buyer nor a seller. And now you go to medical store and buy the product from there, and you can see now why the corruption cannot happen there. So here the knowledge of the buyer is zero. And then you have the second level where we call it as 50-50. Like if you want to buy a computer, so you know that you want to buy a computer, you would have decided that, okay, I'm going to buy Lenovo or Dell, and go to a vendor or a dealer there. He shows you multiple products. He now shows you Mac, and he says that, okay, this Mac has got these features. Even if your budget is around 50 to 60,000 rupees for a laptop, now you fall for his advice and you buy something which is slightly more expensive. That's what happens when you try to buy phones, mobile phones. You decide that I'm going to buy this particular model. You go to shop and shopkeeper gives you 50% of knowledge. That's why what we call as 50-50. You have 50% knowledge. He can't fool you completely, but then he tells you about the features and things and try to upsell whatever is slightly more expensive than you, and you fall for the trap and you end up buying it. That's where you have 50-50 knowledge. Whereas if you go and buy a soap or a shampoo from a shop or a departmental store, you're the supreme. You know everything about it. You don't need anybody's advice. So your knowledge is 100%. So why I say segment-wise, you must understand which segment I am. Or if you're buying a luxury car like Maybach or Aston Martin, you know that it's very expensive, not worth it. It's very difficult to drive inside the city. But then for the sake of prestige or for some fancy, you want to buy that car. You know that you're getting cheated. You're not going to use it. It's a fancy piece, not worth the money. Not to belittle these cars, they are great, but then you know that you're getting fooled. So this is also something about segment. So if you are going to do make a medicine, you need to know the segment which you have to impress is the doctor, who is always more knowledgeable than you, and he has to accept it. And if he has to accept it, he's going to accept it only if you have a randomized controlled trial and the data. So, but if you are going to OTC, over-the-counter segment, like advertising a product, you can be slightly different, and you can make overtly some kind of over claims, and this always happens. And when you make little over claim, it can be excused in the name of art. It's very important. This is we can call it as intellectually dishonest, but then that's how the world is. I really want to take you 1 minute off here to understand that how we start accepting dishonesty. First time I saw a football match, World Cup, was in 1984, and that was a match which was won by Germany. Argentina. And when we saw the match, I was just thinking that the player just falls, and he falls, and the referee comes and he gives a warning signal or a yellow card to the others, and suddenly this guy becomes all right and gets up. I was thinking that this is cheating. I'm sure that guy is not really hurt so much, and the moment the decision is made, he becomes all right. How is it possible? So later, I met one of my friend who is also my partner, who was a club league player in football. And I asked him, how do you do this? Don't you feel bad? He says, Rishi, what happens is, unless I fall, the referee doesn't look at me. That's how the world is, and that's the reason I have to fall. I have to act as if I'm immense pain. I was hit by the opposition player, and then so this is another image that we have created, and that's how the advertisement is. So advertisement world is funny. It's sometimes deceptive, sometimes so deceptive in the name of art that it's false. But then again, if you are playing to that segment, you must understand that you have to play the game as it is. You cannot be a serious player in such field. So market segment is very important. Then also you must understand what is the kind of product that I am making. Let's say you're trying to you have found that there is a chemical in a plant which can substitute soap. Now, if you have a chemical in a plant which can substitute soap, which doesn't have NaOH or KOH, it's caustic substances, which doesn't have SLS, SLES, any of those substances, and the sap can actually work like a soap. Now you must understand who is my competition. If my competition is the multinational soap makers, and if you're going to fight with them, it's going to be very difficult, because the kind of amount of money they have, they can overshadow you so much that you may not be. I'm talking about entrepreneur with smaller budget. You cannot beat them, and that's when you have to be in boutique segment. Maybe that you can make your product very expensive. Don't make it fight with the regular soap of a multinational company. In fact, you keep it separately and try to sell it as a unique product in a unique place, so with a unique identity. And or instead of calling it as a soap, you call something else. You call it as a cleanser or a baby cleanser, etc. So making your product a little boutique is very important. Boutique is unique. It's totally different from others. It has got its own niche. Now, when you make something like that, you're selling a new concept, and selling a new concept is very difficult because you have to first make people educated about the harm of a soap, why soap should not be used, how bad is SLES, which kind of preservatives are bad, what kind of cancers can come because of those preservatives, etc. So first you have to sell the concept that the sap is safe and it's better, it's a need of the hour, you should not use soap. Then you sell your product, and that becomes very, very difficult. But then if you have to do it, you have to do it over a period of time. First few years or months or years, you'll have to spend time on selling the concept. Then you have to sell the product. Then the next is, do you want to sell a product, one product, or a basket of products? Each product is like a baby, and each baby in your house has to be taken care differently at different ages. Each one has to be educated. Our mothers, on the International Mother's Day, they know very well like how to deal with the first child versus the second child, and there are different interests. They have somebody wants to be a doctor, another fellow wants to be an artist. We have to look after them differently. Similarly, each product needs, like a baby, needs to be looked after differently, and hence sometimes it's very difficult. You may have ideas for 4 or 5 products, but it becomes very difficult. That's when we make one brand and one basket. If you look at Sorion, you have 7 products under the same Sorion brand. One is a shampoo for psoriasis, one is a soap, one is an ointment, another is a day cream, another is a moisturizer. So that's called basket. So you must think that whether I should need a single product or I need to make a basket. Next slide, please. Okay, so once you do name, because this part is also about trademark and innovation, it's not very difficult. I mean, I have 5 more minutes. Okay, so trademark is something which you should really seriously think about. India has become very serious about trademark. Infringement on the trademark can lead to, you may have to stop your product from marketing. You may lose a huge amount of money. Finding a trademark is not a difficult task. You just go online, type IPR search India. You will get a window where you can search for your name. With a little bit of understanding about trademark, you can really, before you name a product or register your company, you can know. And there are specialists on that. But then some amount of understanding from your side is very, very important. Without a trademark, now even drug license, a nutritional product license, FSSAI license, you cannot, or a diagnostic kit license, nothing is really possible to be done. So please be aware about trademark, and maybe I can have a separate lecture one day because I've done this repeatedly in multiple places. Now, after you do the trademark, you must think about the form in which I have to really make this product. For example, right now we are developing a kit. You know that COVID has been less than 0.75% fatal in Karnataka. And the reason behind, in 87% of the people, they were asymptomatic. That means even before they realize or the symptoms came, the body has taken care about it. You have heard about antibodies. Now, beyond the antibodies, it is also about our innate system, like we call something like T helper cells or cytotoxic T cells, which have fought the disease. Now, you don't have a kit for that in the market. So we are trying to develop a kit in the market, which will be able to identify and tell you whether you have such cells which can fight against COVID or tomorrow against any other disease. Now, why does it come under one form? The form is very important. Now, do you want to present this kit as a complicated liquid which has to be mixed and done by, in the lab, or you want to optimize it for an autoanalyzer, or you want to do a strip? Somebody takes a strip and puts a drop of blood on that, and he gets a result. So the form is very important, and form is always about user friendliness. The form, which is like soap, is easy because soap does not get melted that easily. But then if there are multiple people in the house have to use the same soap, then preferably a liquid soap will make better sense. So form is something which you really need to think, and most of the innovations are about creating a different form of an existing product. Then delivery system, whether you want it to deliver a product as a tablet, or because our Do you know that our GI or gastrointestinal system is outside the body? That's what we say. It's not inside our body because it is so much sealed from rest of the body that whatever you eat, whatever junk you eat, most of it gets filtered and only the good part or nutrition and what is required for the body gets absorbed and rest gets thrown away. So similarly, even medicines are toxins, you know that. So it is very difficult for to actually judge how much medicine gets really absorbed, etc. So it's very important for you to understand delivery system. Now transdermal or through skin, you can give a lot of products. For example, they're trying to see whether insulin can be given orally because pricking every day is not good. So delivery system is important. Packaging, what are the kind of ingredients you use? Because, you know, recently there was a controversy about using material, gelatin from pig and cow. You know, it is against different religions. So you have to be careful about what you use as a ingredient. What is the kind of color and form you want to give? How should it smell? You know, how do you sell the technology? So innovation could also be about improvisation of the existing product or using new technology for reducing the cost. Because if the cost of production is less, you can give it at a much better competitive price. So if you have really knowledge, you can have an advantage on you know, innovation. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide. Yeah, a bit of money, and I will wind up. Can you come back? Yeah. One thing is very important is in the market. Many people call it as a site or an advance or credit, etc. I'll tell you the business is over only when you get money in your hand. I don't sell a single product from my company without getting money in hand. So money collected is money gained, not money promised is money gained. So business is over only once you get the money in hand. Any promise is not okay. Secondly, if you're doing a business, being an entrepreneur, you need to have an extreme fiscal discipline. We have extreme fiscal discipline. You ask anybody in our company, first thing in the month, expenditure is on salaries. We pay salaries first before 3rd of every month. After we finish our salary from the bank account, the next money goes to statutory requirement like taxes, GST, and all of them. After we finish that, it goes to the vendors, who have supplied materials to us. And lastly, it has to be given to the owners as a profit. So this fiscal discipline is very important. I've seen quite a few companies failing that the the owner goes and collects the money to buy sari for his wife or buying a golf kit for himself, and he ends up defaulting in statutory, not giving salaries on time, etc. So fiscal discipline should always be carried out. Being a paymaster, there are many people who do not like to give money. They have always second thought. You be a paymaster, so your vendors know that you're going to get money, then he'll give you the best quality material and he will give you the best price. Paying the vendor or paying whom you have to, payable has to be on time and have the discipline in it. You need to know how to price. Pricing techniques are slightly, tricky. You can go to net and maybe or somebody talking about it. Be generous in sampling and always be generous in business, because if you're generous, somebody is going to be generous towards you. I have seen people taking small money for small, kind of a test or something, favor they did, and it leaves a very bitter feeling among the person, a colleague or another company which has used your service. So be generous when you do. Whenever I sell a medicine, I will always sell a medicine, take money. But if somebody comes to me and says that, sir, can you just test my product for heavy metals presence, I will never take money, because that's how you create relationships and you build the companies. So never take money for a small business. Next slide. So this is a little detail about operations. It's not really important at this moment. Next slide, please. Sales and marketing is very important. You must understand the difference between PR, difference between marketing, sales. What do you mean by social media marketing? What do you mean by digital marketing? What do you mean by paid marketing? This may sound like jargon for you, but actually, if you look at, there are innumerable number of videos in YouTube, and these days you find everything in YouTube. So you can just go there. This slide can be freely shared by everybody. You can go through the internet and try to understand what I mean by these things. But then sales and marketing is most important part. There are two things which are most difficult in really pharma or bio industry. First is invention. Second is selling. You may be able to sell. I mean, you may be able to invent, but unless you have a proper sales and marketing strategy and enough money for that, you cannot succeed. Next slide, please. Next slide. Fakes is something which you have to be very careful about. A country like India, people can steal your ideas. Your own employee can steal your idea and make a competitive product because he has to spend less money than what you. We have been facing a lot of problems with the fakes coming from China. We are present in 40 countries. So how do you stop them doing this? There are various techniques. So you have to be aware that fakes can overtake your product. Next slide, please. So, concluding remarks, it's sometimes important for you to rebrand yourself. What you are as a lecturer or a teacher is not, you have to think like the customer who is there. So rebranding yourself may be very important. You can sell a product to a child by only acting like a child. You rebel by acting like a rebel. So rebranding is very important. Because you sold one product, second product may not be easy to sell. Each one is a baby, and it has to be, it needs proper backing. Third one is most important. The guy who believes in your product is the guy who can sell your product. I tell my medical reps that you have to use my product. You should be convinced about it. Unless you use my product and convince about it, you cannot convince a doctor. My marketing head coined this term, prasadam. You should, when you go to a temple and you take prasadam, you just take it and you don't look at the hygiene, you don't look at the taste or thing. We accept it because it is supposed to be from the God. It's the same thing with every religion. And you have to take it, you accept it as it is, you eat it. So the guy who accepts your product as, prasadam for him, that this is for my life, it's good for me, is the one who will be able to sell it. If you have a guy who is little critical about you, somebody who is not convinced in your team, please remove him. He will not be able to sell your product. Price hike has to be thought about right in advance. Otherwise, you will be in a trap. Always think of price hikes, especially if you are white labeling, that you're making a product for others. Think of 5 to 10 years ahead and right away think what is kind of inflation and how the product is going to be priced. Never get tempted, never cheat your partner. I have partners, I have never ever changed my partners. My manufacturing partners or my supplying partners or my business partner. I've been lured by many people with a higher money or a higher stake, but don't get lured. Somebody whom you trusted at the time of inception, somebody was with you in the hard times, is somebody who will be with you in the future hard times as well. So don't often change the partners just because you got a better deal. One product can give you an opportunity in entirely different field. Like you can see here, like since we are in pharma marketing, during COVID times, we just developed this particular thermometer, and we could sell it because we have a distribution chain. So one penetration and creating one infrastructure is very important, which can be used for multiple products. Thank you very much. If you have, I think I've been just 5 minutes late. If you have any questions, I'm free to take the questions. And this presentation can be freely shared by the organizers with all the participants. So these are the products which we have across the globe. And it took me around 19 years to reach around 100 crore of turnover across the world. If you have quality, your product will be accepted in India as well as overseas. You need to follow the regulations of each country, and you'll be surprised that regulation in Nepal is much more stringent than in Russia. So sometimes that happens. Thank you very much. Thanks organizers for giving me an opportunity. Now I am open for questions.
Thank you, sir, for the valuable information. Sir, we have a question from one of the participants. Sir, could you give us an insight on the challenges you faced while starting your organization?
The first and foremost thing, you'll be surprising because I was trying to sell a product to a doctor. Till then, I was a doctor and reps used to come to me, and I used to, I started introspecting and realizing how arrogant I was. Now, when I try to sell my product to a doctor, I realize how arrogant that doctor is. So how much ever good you are, wherever you are, a teacher, a lecturer, or a scientist, the first challenge is once you start trying to sell the product, suddenly the outlook of the people towards you changes. They think that you are after money. They think that they know a little better than you. They think that you are cheating them, etc. So that was the first challenge which I had. Second is money. To start a company, I got initial investment of around 8 crores. I could raise that kind of, not 8, 6, yeah, around 8 crores, 6.8 in the first round, and another 1.2 crores. Money is something which is extremely difficult. And I really had a problem. I almost shut down my company because of lack of funding. But fortunately, my partner stood with me and, mobilized the funds for me. So money is the second. Third is human manpower. Creating people who trust you as you are, without being deceptive, is very important. A lack of experience of not being an MBA, or lack of experience in human resource management, or a lack of experience in statutory management, taxations, GST. By then it was VAT. It was a challenge. I had to take a lot of help, and I had lost a lot of money because of doing things wrongly, wrongly filing returns, not paying, not knowing about. There was something called Establishment Act. I mean, there was a Rental Agreement Act or something like that. I got into that. I had to pay a fine. So challenges are more. So it is very, very important for us to gather expertise in various fields: human resources, marketing, statutory, taxation, everything, and have them as their expensive. I know they sound useless. They sound to be unnecessary expensive, because the kind of problems they would have solved is not anticipatable in advance. Hence, that was a big challenge. And I mean, I got lucky. I don't say that I did everything right. Probably I got lucky in quite a few places.
Thank you, sir. And I, Dr. K. Valarmati, on behalf of these principals, staff, and students of the Department of Biotechnology, would deem it a great pleasure in extending your heartfelt gratitude for accepting our invitation behind your busy schedule and giving such an elaborative and informative talk, sir. And looking forward for more interactions with you, sir. Thank you so much.
Surely. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure being with you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yes, sir. Sure. Thank you so much. Participants, please join us to the session 3. Use the link provided to your mail ID, and the session link will be shared to the WhatsApp group also. So now we are officially ending this session, and please join us at the session 3.